For a few minutes, forget the missiles shown to you every evening on television like an action movie, the billion-dollar aircraft carriers cleaving the oceans, and that Middle East-centric political theater. Behind all that noise, a much darker, much quieter operation is being conducted that reaches directly into your pocket. The bill for that $2.5 million Tomahawk missile was not cut from the Pentagon's bottomless vault or the personal accounts of politicians, but from your personal account. In this video, we will decipher in all its nakedness how the global elites finance their own power wars with your savings. We will talk about a truth never told to you in the economic bulletins of the mainstream media, how a single day's blockage in the Strait of Hormuz, the jugular vein of global oil, can reduce the profit margins of the giant companies you trust and your stock portfolios to zero overnight. More importantly, you will face the reality of that massive ghost fleet wandering like ghosts in the dark waters of the oceans with their radars completely turned off, silently destroying the 50-year throne of the US dollar. This is such a truth that it will rewrite all the economic rules you know. If you show the patience to watch this video to the end, you will learn the 3 definitive escape strategies currently being silently applied behind closed doors by smart money, which will allow you to survive when a cyber war starts and that digital wealth you trust is completely locked down for 72 hours. You need these strategies to avoid being on the wrong side of the wealth transfer in the midst of the crisis. But first, I have a very critical and vital question for you. Please pause the video right now and write honestly below in the comments section. If all your wealth is on bank servers, consisting only of digital codes, when that system collapses in a cyber attack, what will you have left that is real, that you can physically hold, that can feed your family? I will read your comments one by one and discuss your family protection plans with you. We are lifting the curtain of the digital illusion. Let's move on to how the global switch has been pulled down on us and that hidden perfect robbery in your wallet. Those tie-wearing experts in the mainstream media spend hours drawing arrows on maps in front of massive touchscreens. They discuss the operational ranges of aircraft carriers, the destructive power of missiles, and the diplomatic chess of politicians with endless excitement. However, no one in those shiny studios dares to ask that most ruthless, most real and simplest question of the economy. Who is paying for these missiles blown up in a single night, worth hundreds of billions of dollars for these massive military operations? Let's take a closer look at the math. The cost of just a single interceptor missile and air defense munition is over $4 million. The operational cost of an aircraft carrier fleet waiting just one day in those dangerous waters amounts to tens of millions of dollars. In a one-night operation, literal fortunes are blown into the air. So, do the United States or its Western allies have a ready budget in their vaults to pay for this? No, absolutely not. We all know that the American economy is struggling in a massive debt swamp exceeding $36 trillion, and that the current system is having trouble even paying the interest on the debt it created. The balance sheet has already blown up, so how is this mind-boggling bill paid? Modern governments cannot knock on your door during war times and say, "We as a country are entering a new war. From this month on, we are seizing 40% of your income as a war tax." The moment they try this, riots will break out in the streets the next day. Governments will fall. For the system to survive and control you, it needs invisible chains, prices you will pay without feeling them. That is why they deploy the most insidious and quietest weapon invented by financial history: unbacked money printing and the inflation tax. Washington, the Pentagon, and central banks create trillions of dollars out of thin air with no physical backing by pressing a few keys on computer screens to fund this war. Every new, fresh, and unbacked piece of paper that enters the market silently steals the purchasing power of the labor you worked for years to save, the real added value your company produces, and the investment funds you set aside for retirement. This is called the Cantillon effect in economics. While the elites who first print and use the money get richer, as that money spreads to the base, it burns the pocket of the middle class. Just as the Roman Empire decreased the actual silver ratio in its currency day by day to pay its fighting legionnaires and turned the money into tin. Just as the US in the 1970s made the whole world pay for the terrible cost of the Vietnam War through inflation by destroying the gold standard, the exact same thing is happening today, right at this second. While you watch explosions on screens, the stocks of defense industry companies are breaking all-time records in the stock markets. Company CEOs are receiving massive bonuses. Meanwhile, your real purchasing power is melting away. Without you even realizing it, you are financing this war. Inflation is a hidden, massive hose drawn from the pocket of the middle class and the unconscious investor so that the elites can add wealth to their wealth and finance their own military operations. Every extra penny you pay for cheese or milk at the grocery store is actually the tax for that fired missile. Shortly, I will explain how the US dollar, which you thought was a safe haven and is the backbone of world trade, is being collapsed from the inside by the secret gold trade between China and Iran. When that critical moment arrives, you will see how your paper money in the bank will rapidly erode in the international market. But first, let's go down to the seas, the oceans, and look at the physical shock right at our door, how the global supply chain is being ruthlessly severed. If you think the war and this global tension will remain limited to the monetary policies of central banks or the numbers in the stock market, you are in a great and fatal delusion. Physical reality is always much more ruthless, much harsher than digital numbers. The Iran-US tension actually stands right on top of two massive switches that are the lifeblood of the global economy. One of these is the Strait of Hormuz, and the other is the Red Sea and Suez Canal route. Exactly 20% of the oil consumed every day on Earth must pass through that narrow Strait of Hormuz every day. The energy that runs Asia's massive factories, the fuel that turns Europe's production wheels and heats homes, comes exactly from there. There is absolutely no reasonable alternative, no plan B for this route. Mining that strait with an asymmetrical move, hitting a few tankers or blocking it with a military blockade means the price of a barrel of oil rocketing not slowly over months, but to $150 or even $200 in just 48 hours. When you hear this, you might say, "My investments are in artificial intelligence and tech stocks. My car is electric. The rise in oil won't hit me." This is failing to understand the basic functioning of the economy. The modern global economy is a massive organism that literally has oil circulating in its veins. Oil being $200 doesn't just mean the price of gasoline. The tractor plowing the field burns diesel. The synthetic fertilizer that grows the wheat coming to our table is produced directly from fossil fuels in petrochemical plants. The entire logistics network that takes that product from the factory and delivers it to the grocery store on your street is dependent on oil. Oil being $200 means production lines stopping due to costs, global logistics costs quintupling, and the profit margins of those giant tech and retail companies you trust zeroing out in a single quarter. This incredible inflationary shock triggers a massive panic sell-off of trillions of dollars in the stock markets. This is a bomb dropping directly onto your retirement portfolio, onto your savings. It's not over. At the same time, on the other side of the map, the Red Sea and Suez Canal crossings are being locked down. The route of those massive container ships stretching from Asia's production centers to Europe and America, carrying 1/3 of world trade, is cut like a knife. Today, logistics giants are afraid to pass their ships through that region. They cannot pass. The route is inevitably extended by thousands of miles and diverted to the southernmost tip of Africa, the Cape of Good Hope. What is the meaning of this in your life? The journey gets weeks longer. Fuel consumption doubles, triples. For ships entering waters carrying war risks or approaching those regions, insurance giants in London, like Lloyd's, raise premiums to astronomical, unpayable figures. That just-in-time production model, upon which we have built our entire modern life for the last 30 years, has officially and definitively collapsed. The era of cheap goods, fast delivery, let me order and have it at my door tomorrow, is completely closed. German automotive giants, tech factories in America, will have to stop massive production lines because they cannot find that tiny microchip, a sensor, or a simple screw coming from the other end of the world on time. This terrifying supply-side shock will empty grocery store shelves in a very short time. Price tags will change daily. Inflation will spiral completely out of control, not only because central banks printed unbacked money, but also because physically no goods are left to sell in the world. You will feel the drop in your standard of living to your bones. When you watch news channels, politicians talk about economic sanctions with great self-confidence, caught up in hubris. They say, "We have thrown opposing forces out of the system, removed them from the SWIFT network, frozen their accounts. We will completely choke them economically and bring them to their knees." However, the arrogance of the system has completely blinded them to the ruthless reality on the ground. So, do these heavy embargoes that America has been applying for years really work? Can the system destroy its own rivals? Mathematics, maritime data, and satellite imagery say a definite and clear no. Those pushed out of the global system did not sit helplessly and wait for bankruptcy. They united among themselves and built for themselves an alternative financial infrastructure that the West cannot control. Right now, in the world's oceans, hundreds of massive oil tankers belonging to front companies with uncertain identity and ownership are wandering, having turned off their international tracking signals, constantly hiding or changing their flags. In maritime intelligence, we call this structure the ghost fleet. Iran, Russia, and other energy giants sanctioned by the West sell millions of barrels of oil every day through this ghost fleet to China, the biggest production giant and hungry for energy. With ship-to-ship transfers made in the middle of the ocean in the dead of night, the source of the oil is completely lost. But the real breaking point, the event that shakes the system to its foundations, is not the oil itself or the ships. The real breaking point is that the payments for this massive multi-billion-dollar energy trade are not made with the American dollar controlled by Wall Street. That SWIFT system they trust so much is not used. Payments are made with the Chinese yuan, with local barter agreements, and much more staggeringly, with physical gold, which has been the very reality of money for thousands of years, which politicians cannot print. This picture is not a simple trade agreement. This is a deadly dagger thrust into the heart of the Petrodollar system, which was established in 1974 and has indisputably managed the world in a unipolar manner since then. Think about it. What happens if the world's biggest production giants no longer need the American dollar to buy energy and keep their economies afloat, if they do not demand that money as a reserve? Those trillions of paper dollars that America has exported unbacked to the world for decades, which are the fuel of global trade, suddenly cannot find a place to go. Like a massive boomerang, they return to their homeland, the American economy. Inflation becomes trapped within the borders of the U.S. The global reserve currency status of the dollar collapses. When this tremor occurs, those paper dollars and euros you keep in the bank, calling them a safe haven, undergo a terrifying erosion in international markets. Your purchasing power evaporates. Do you now understand much more clearly why the world's leading central banks, China, Russia, India, etc., have been stocking tons of physical gold at record levels for the last 2 or 3 years, not for nothing? Smart money is preparing for this de-dollarization storm, this axis shift. While the dollar hegemony is crumbling, they are fleeing the paper illusion and taking refuge in physical reality. The system is collapsing, and they have already filled the lifeboats. The real war of your life, however, will be fought on keyboards, in fiber optic cables under the ocean, in the invisible cyber world. The most destructive, costless, and deadliest weapon that asymmetric powers will use against the massive navy and air power of America and the West is cyber warfare. Please take this fiction seriously, because this is not a doomsday scenario, but a very close possibility that security experts are working on, which could happen at any moment. You wake up on an ordinary Tuesday morning. You turn on the light. There is no electricity. The grids are locked down. You pick up your phone. The operator signal is completely gone. You go outside with your family for vital needs. You took the last few bottles of water and bread left in the grocery store and came to the register. As you are used to doing, you hand your card or smartwatch to the POS device. That cold and bitter sound comes from the device. No connection. Visa and MasterCard networks have crashed. You try to enter your banking application to make a transfer. The servers cannot be reached. Massive money transfer networks like Fedwire and SWIFT are under cyber attack. Their databases are locked. As the panic grows, the government declares a state of emergency to prevent the system from collapsing completely and a run on the banks, bank run, and decides to freeze the banking network for 72 hours. The switch is turned off. Now think. If all your wealth, your investment portfolio that is the labor of years and that you care for like your eyes, consists merely of digital numbers inside a glass screen, when the system is locked down for those 72 hours, it means you are a big zero financially. That Cashless Society project, sold to you for years by tech giants, banks, and governments as a great convenience, a major step of civilization, fighting crime, is a digital prison with no exit that leaves you completely helpless when the plug is pulled or during a cyber attack. Being 100% dependent on the system means being 100% vulnerable in a centralized crisis. You might be a millionaire on paper, but for those 72 hours, you will not have the power to buy a bottle of water for your family. We have diagnosed the crisis in all its nakedness, stripped of all illusions. Now we move on to its treatment. To stay out of the system and survive, you must implement these 3 definitive steps, 3 escape strategies without losing any time. 1. Pull capital expenditures forward. Lock in consumption. The logistics shock and supply chain break have already begun. Their effects are coming in waves. If you have vital fixtures, equipment, technological tools, or vehicle spare parts that you need to buy for your business or your own life in the next 6 months or a year, absolutely do not wait. Go and buy them today. Back up strategic, non-perishable foods, filters, and medicines. When the Red Sea is completely locked down, when ocean trade stops, those products will either never come to your country or will be sold at black market prices, at mind-boggling figures. Every physical purchase you make at today's prices is the safest, 100% guaranteed investment against tomorrow's supply shock and hyperinflation. Beat inflation today. 2. Flee from paper, return to physical and hard assets. Do not forget, throughout history, wars and geopolitical crises have always ruthlessly swallowed paper money, which politicians can print boundlessly at the printing press. Reduce the amount of cash paper money in your portfolio to just the emergency level. The idle cash you keep in the bank is an ice cube melting every day. Follow the strategy that smart money is silently applying behind closed doors right now. Switch to hard assets, whose supply is limited, which the system cannot manipulate with a keystroke, and which cannot be printed in war. Focus on physical gold, physical silver, productive real estate land, or decentralized assets closed to government intervention. During war periods, government bonds that offer returns crushed far below inflation are the biggest financial trap. Stay absolutely away from them. Anchor your wealth to physical reality. 3. Be your own bank. The self-custody rule. It is the most ancient, most ruthless rule of finance. What you do not hold in your own hands, what you cannot physically access, is not actually yours. It is merely a promise given to you. Your entire wealth cannot be at the mercy of digital networks, banks, and on servers open to cyber attacks. Keep enough cash in your home, in your own safe, to comfortably sustain your family for at least a month or 2 in the event of a possible cyber collapse or state of emergency, and physical silver coins or gold, which are the easiest to liquidate in a crisis. When the system collapses or the banks are frozen, that 1 ounce physical silver in your hand will be your only salvation in those dark days. To sum up, those wars you watch on television are not thousands of kilometers away from you. They are happening directly inside your wallet and in your bank accounts. You pay the cost of those missiles silently every day with the hidden inflation tax. Global supply chains are breaking, costs are rising, and that tremendous digital system you trust carries the risk of a cyber lockdown at any moment. While they sell you digital illusions from giant screens, it is of vital importance that you cling to physical realities, to gold, to silver, and to your own precautions. You will never hear these data I've explained, these mechanisms in the background, on the screens of the mainstream media. To avoid being caught unprepared by the next geopolitical and financial crisis wave, to protect your family, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on the notification bell. Do not forget to press the like button so that the video reaches more people seeking the truth like you. The system is completely rigged, the cards are marked in advance, but now you know the rules of the game. Do not be fooled by illusions. Prepare for reality. The system will not tell you the truth. We will.